to be followed at today's event. This building is equipped with a fire alarm system, and in the event of an emergency, the alarm will sound. There are no planned drills for today, so if the alarm sounds, you will treat this as a real emergency. Once the alarm has sounded, calmly make your way through the exit. There are 2 exits, which are clearly marked located at the front, east, and west of the room, and 2 at the back of the room. Take a moment to identify the exits. Once outside the room, make your way to the ground floor and exit through one of the 2 emergency exits located east of the building. Continue north through the pedestrian gate to the assembly area located at the back of the Department of Behavioral Sciences. Stay at the assembly area and await further instructions. In the event of an earthquake, stay calm, look out for falling debris. Once the shaking stops, exit the building in a calm and orderly manner and assemble at the assembly area where you will receive further instructions. Thank you. So to establish protocol, we would like to thank the Honorable Dr. Tyrese Singh, Minister of Health, the Honorable Donna Cox, Minister of Social Development and Family Services, Dr. Eric Wheeler, PAHO, representative, Dr. Christian Stone, Chairman, Youth Development and Education Committee for Citizens Foundation, Ms. Trudy Lewison, Group Marketing and Communications Officer for Citizens Foundation, Ms. Maria O'Brien, Lived Experience Expert, Voice of SID, Ambassador for Google Women Techmakers, Mindwise CEO, Ms. Priyanka Lalla, OPM Child Rights Ambassador Representative, Mr. Tyrese St. Louis, Vice President of the UE Guild, Mr. Luke James Trim, CARICOM Youth Ambassador, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassador, Ms. Crystal Mohammed, Rotaract District 70, Incoming District Rotaract Representative, Ms. Tanya Weston, President of the Rotary Club, Central Port of Spain, Ms. Chelsea Antoine, Secretary, Caribbean Regional Youth Council, Ms. Terrian Baker, First Vice President of the Trinidad Youth Council, Mr. Rudy Hanamji, Pride TT founder, Mr. Arnaldo James, COO and Director of Mindwise, Ms. Rashida Ramkilawan, Suicide Prevention Team Lead Mindwise, and Ms. Rihanna Kandai, Volunteer Coordinator for Mindwise. So, I would like to thank you all for being able to attend today's event. Now, suicide prevention, as we all know, is such an important topic in Trinidad and Tobago. With the statistics on the rise, especially for our male counterparts, it is important that we have these discussions, have these conversations. Can you all hear me properly? Yes. Have these conversations to promote the reduction of stigma surrounding these important topics. Now, in Trinidad and Tobago, the statistics for suicide is growing. Especially through the pandemic, it has increased tremendously. That is why it is important for us to speak, especially given our most recent campaign, which is the stigma reduction of suicide, of mental health. We saw that how important it is to have these lived experiences. Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, great. So we saw how important it is to have these lived experiences and how sharing stories really impacts the persons that feel like they're alone in this world and that their thoughts is an individual thought as opposed to a collective experience. So I ask you all today, do you all think suicide is preventable? And that's correct. Suicide is preventable with the right resources, with the right intervention, at the right time. We can all help to promote the hotlines, these activations where we open up these conversations. And as you all know, September 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day. And September, with the entire month, we look at suicide. And we use this time to remember to take a moment to speak to each other. Because sometimes we're caught up in our own world and we forget that the persons around us is struggling. Even within ourselves, we're struggling. And just to have that conversation and just to say, hey, I really am dealing with something, it opens up that conversation to have a partner, to have someone that we can rely on. So that's really what we want to tackle today, that beginning of the conversation, that declaration form where we agree to partner in training for suicide prevention. Because sometimes the life that you save is your own. And that is so important to know that the hotlines exist, the resources exist, and just to bring it forward to the persons that need it. So, to begin, I would like to ask Maria OBrien to give her opening remarks.
Seeing a young person coming up here with their laptop makes me feel less old. That's how attached we become to our devices, right? If we're seeing people coming up onto stage with their devices, feel like this is how we read, but this is the world we live in. So thank you everyone for coming today. I know a lot of us have overcome an enormous amount of challenges in the last 2 months. I do think that a lot of people have been facing obstacles, delays, unusual events that we don't understand, yeah? But I do think that all of the partners who have showed up today, we are very, very proud that you all came out to support this intervention that's being presented to you by our volunteers and our new partners. So thank you so much. So for World Suicide Prevention Month, last year, they started the hashtag or the statement, creating hope through action. And this year, Paho asked me to make a statement about what creating hope through action means to me. And I figured that was a good place to start. So about 12 years ago now in Baltimore City, I lost someone named Michael, who was at the time my partner, to suicide. Then surviving my own suicidal ideation, addiction, and PTSD, I must agree with the statement that suicide takes place when pain outweighs our existing resources for coping with pain. This was something that I read in an online resource while trying to find support after coming back to Trinidad and Tobago, where they had recently discontinued public service support for Lifeline. So it was kind of funny. I just came back, and Lifeline had been discontinued with their support. So I was like, great, now I have no suicide prevention support. So what do? I did an online hunt. That's what I did, because technology is my safe space, as I mentioned to people earlier. With this powerful and simple equation and idea, I do believe that through the continuous harvesting of coping resources for those in crisis and attending to the distribution of those coping resources with the attention that is paid to distributing alcohol and other drugs. In fact, even today I was walking through your extraordinary cafeteria here at UE, and there's like 4 QR code campaigns for KFC. No, there was, and it was like one after the other, boom, 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 boom. And I was like, what if we created coping resources for young people the way that we thought about advertising corporate food and beverages to young people? We had that same approach and attention. We would cause so much impact, yeah? Sorry, I'm already in like suicide prevention mode, guys. I've been going all day. Suicide is preventable, but it is a battle that we are fighting between hopelessness and action. We must ask ourselves, how are we coping with pain? Some of us are coping in healthy ways like yoga and meditation, friends, connection, belief, and others have found relief in addictions like food, alcohol, narcotics, violence, devices, and Netflix. Guilty. Isolated and disconnected from hurt. What influences these choices? Intergenerational traumas, or lack of healthy choices, and a lack of healthy environments. However, our environment is something that we can improve. I've been leaning into the documentary side of Netflix lately, and there's something that they did a blue community documentary about how we can have longer livelihoods within longer lifespans for generations based on changing environmental factors, not trying to control the individual, but just controlling their environment. I thought that was a breakthrough idea, especially when you bring it into the public health space, which I've had the opportunity to work with so many amazing leaders in. Our environment is something that we can improve with expertise, investment, and listening, and some belief. We need to have a national suicide prevention action plan. We need to have networks and communities that are trained in suicide prevention strategies. We also need to combat the stigma around addiction, suicide, and mental health crisis and conditions. Let us invest in programs that support these actions. Such an investment would be like what we have received from the First Citizens Foundation into the First Citizens Sustainable Minds Youth Volunteer Program, which is a mental health, tech for mental health program that is developing innovations focusing on this year is stigma reduction. This statement is all online on the PAHO website, but I think I'll stop there. The main thing that I want to say is that one of the things that I've discovered as a suicide prevention advocate and why suicide prevention is such a major thing for us here at Mindwise is because here in Trinidad and Tobago, we lose 2 persons per week to suicide. In August, I believe we lost 5 adolescents to suicide. And all of that, I think, happened in a 2-week span, just before school opened. So we are looking at a population. Our youth volunteers that are here today, you all know you've done your suicide prevention training, right? We know that suicide prevention is possible, but it takes a band of resilience. And what we are working on today is, what we are presenting to you today, is a 2-pronged strategy of resilience. The first is creating a knowledge base. The knowledge base will be preventsuicidett.com, which very possibly may not just be TT anymore before the end of the year, depending on how things evolve with Rotaract, yeah? And our regional partners. So, but it is starting here in Trinidad and Tobago with our partners who are present today. So we thank you so much. So that's the digital part of the innovation, sort of like a home base for this activity. And I do believe in building communities of practice that have a digital home, a physical component like our wellness benches, and then you have a community action behind it. And that is what the Youth Gatekeepers Declaration for Suicide Prevention is. We are looking at bringing together youth partners regionally, including through the Rotaract and Rotary international networks within District 7030, and regional partners like CARICOM, Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassadors, and other youth ambassadors throughout the region, right? To do a suicide prevention training program that would create an elastic band of resilience, because it's train the trainer on a layman level, which is to be evaluated by our ecosystem partners, of course, because we're not just moving with, hey, this is what we think we can do. So this has been the work I have been doing for 12 years. I'm extremely proud to be launching this today with our partners, with the support that we have received from First Citizens, and with all of the amazing volunteers in this room. I know you guys climbed to get here today, so all of you that got here, it is so nice to meet you in person. I gave my first suicide prevention talk in person today for the first time. All of my talks have been virtual until today, and I was shaking. And then I'm like, how do you do this? Because in a virtual space, there's some distance that makes us feel safe. It is difficult to stand up on a stage in front of people that you don't know and say, last month, I was suicidal. As a cancer patient, I struggle with suicidal ideation often. It is a common thing as well that is experienced by persons who have survived another person's suicide. This does not change the fact that surviving suicidal My bad, sorry, Vincent. Surviving suicidal ideation is difficult if you do not know what to do as an individual. Helping a person who is trying to survive suicidal ideation is difficult if you do not know where to start. And we can help you with that. And we're going to give young people the tools because we believe that they're dealing with some of the biggest suicidal crises that we have ever faced as a generation or as a global population. Yeah? The statistic I gave today, and I'm going to leave with that, is young people who die between the ages of 15 and 29 die more by suicide than they do by war and guns combined. That is how high the rate of suicide for young adults and adolescents is in our world. In our region, we have some of the highest rates of suicide in the world. In our district at Rotary, we have 3 of the highest in the world. And it's something for us to pay attention to culturally, but it's also an opportunity to, if we can solve it here, that is something that they can scale to other parts of the world. So we are willing to experiment as long as you keep traveling with us. So thank you so much, everyone. It's floating. I just put it down. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Maria. I would like to invite our next guest, Mr. Rudy Hanamji, to give his remarks. Rudy is the founder of Pride TT. Rudy? Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. Maria, good afternoon, everyone, especially the partners, First Citizens, UE, your other supporters, and Mindwise in particular. Of course, we've been friends for a long time now. And I want to join you on stage, Maria, today to endorse this project and to also share a bit about my story. And you know, it's empowering to hear someone like yourself speak openly about your own story, because then it allows us to feel a little more comfortable to share ours. It's ironic returning here to this campus after graduating almost 17 years ago. And I walked this campus as the only openly gay student, as far as I know, as far as my friends still tell me today. There were many other queer people on campus, but did they identify? Did they walk openly? No. I was actually interviewed by the psychology department as a student here because they were curious to understand how I was coping with that fact because they recognized it. As a matter of fact, Christian and I, a few days ago, we had longer hair, maybe a few weeks. When I went to the campus, people thought I was a Norwegian transfer student who didn't speak English, because people did not want to necessarily interact with me. Now, I was introduced to you as Rudy, but my first name is actually Rudolph. And I share that name with a very famous character. You all might know him, right? We sing about him at a special time of the year. If you stop for a moment and think about that song, That song that we all celebrate with is really a story about exclusion with a happy ending. But that red nose that Rudolph carried actually could have led Rudolph to a very sad end because of that exclusion. And I know what it is to be not to be part of reindeer games. Because at Queen's Royal College, which is a great institution, I was also the only openly gay student for 7 years. Well, maybe 5.5, because I'll tell you why at the end of the story. And every single day of my life at the college, I had to face some form of harassment. I learned words for the first time that I never heard because my family didn't use those words. I really didn't understand what people were saying to me. But for the mere fact that I looked different and I spoke differently and I walked differently, and maybe I had a little more pep in my step, people did not want to include me in certain activities. However, Maria made the point about coping mechanisms. Had it not been for my family, had it not been for my friends who stood by me at the college, who I'm still very good friends with today and defended me, and had it not been for the administration, the teachers, the principal, particularly at the time, and Mrs. Eiffel, who was the guidance officer at the school. Too many schools today don't have those resources. I probably would not have made it through into the tertiary. I would not have been part of this great institution because I had other friends who did very poorly in their exams because they were dealing with internal issues that they had no coping mechanism to deal with. And therefore, their academics were impacted. And later on in my life, I have had to deal with the loss of 6 persons to suicide. I know what it is to speak to someone a weekend before at a party and then receive a text message that they are no longer with us. And then you go to that person's funeral, and the part of the reason why that person took their life is because there are people in society who believe that religion teaches that certain people are not equal to other people. And on the day of that person's funeral, at the cathedral in Port of Spain, you had members of a particular faith, not all, but a particular faith, marching around Woodford Square against queer individuals. And that group of people I hold partly responsible for my friend's suicide. And the point I am bringing home to us, ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary folk, if there are any here with us, is simply that we all have to be mindful about what we say, when we say it, and our own behaviors. We have to take personal responsibility. Because you can make a joke. I can tell you personally, I've been in the corporate world for over 20 years. And up to today, people will make jokes that they don't realize affect you a certain way. And if you don't have someone who is able to speak up for you at times, if you are not so empowered as maybe I am, but someone else hearing that joke who is not able to speak for themselves, and no one else corrects that individual, that joke, that sentiment is like a dagger that drives into that person's heart and makes them realize, unfortunately, that I am not accepted here. And that, little by little, crumb by crumb, piece by piece, someone moves from understanding the true value of this beautiful boon of life to saying, my life has no value. But there is a happy ending. With projects like these and people like Maria and all of your fellow Mindwise workers and those of us here, we can transform a lot of those stories into the celebration of inclusion. So I want to thank you very much, Maria, from a very personal point of view. And for those of you out there who are listening to this message and you think that there is no rainbow at the end of this journey, I and many others are living proof that with the right coping mechanisms, we can all overcome whatever challenges, and you can create your own spaces of inclusion. So keep believing in that and reach out to groups like Mindwise and support these projects, because you may never know the life that you save. And that's what we say at Pride TT all the time. The work that we do, because queer persons have a higher propensity to commit suicide or to either not lose their life through self-harm, they sometimes lose their lives through violence, or they live a life that is really a half a life. Because unlike most of us who put on masks to enhance who we are, they put on masks to hide who they are. So by doing that, you can actually facilitate somebody out there in the ecosystem that you will never know, maintaining a more positive outlook, and you could help save that one life that you will never know about, but you would have done good. And if you could do that and walk in this world and say that I left the world a better place, then you've done your purpose in life, and somebody else would fulfill their purpose in life because they wouldn't lose their life. So thank you very much, Maria. All the best.
Thank you very much, Rudy. So I'd like to call, we're moving along quickly because we're late, right? So I'd like to call the next speaker, Dr. Christian Stone from the Youth Development Education Committee of the Citizens Bank. Thank you. Foundation. Yes, you can.
Some big shoes to fill after those two speeches, to be fair. So allow me to say all protocols observed. In a recent post, a young professional right here in Trinidad said, I took 3 months off from work this year. Q2 for me didn't exist. And he said it became necessary when they looked in the mirror and realized they didn't recognize themselves. Persons had told them that they were behaving out of character. And anxiety and depression became their housemates. They took the decision to step away. And, they thought they would need a couple of weeks that turned into months. And she said she's sharing this even as she recalled the instance of a friend who recently attended his colleague's funeral, who took his own life after being denied time off by his employer. But even if it is, you can take 3 minutes. I encourage you to be intentional about that. And this account, like many others shared by Rudy, by Maria, and even the ones I have from my own personal experience, they're not fiction. This is real life stories, and is reflective of the real life struggles faced by men, women, youth, non-binaries, who consider suicide as a real way out. Of course, that's sad. It speaks to the critical lack of awareness, of preparedness, and perhaps even willingness to address the issue of suicide prevention and mental health in our schools. And forgive me, Trudy, if I just break for a second. When I was actually in secondary school, or at least when I'd come back from university, I was teaching, and one of the teachers actually committed suicide. And I remember being in the staff room, 22 years old, probably the age of everybody here, and I was like, hey, we should have something. But the answer, of course, is we don't have the resources for it. And I think programs like these are so necessary because in so many areas we want, but it just isn't the resources to have them. So huge credit to the team because you guys are doing massive work. We can understand that the stories behind the statistics are real ones that require a resolute, fervent, and collective response. And that's what makes today's exercise so significant. A step that we are assured can make the difference between life and death. Literally the difference between life and death. And so, the First Citizens Foundation is so pleased to lend their support to this excellent initiative. And I'll also say, when we first opened applications for so many projects in the foundation, there were over 40. And this was just one, I think, of 2 or 3 that actually was selected, which speaks to the importance that the foundation and First Citizens puts on this initiative. So, we are honored to be able to come together with all of you and make a genuine difference. Of particular significance to us is, obviously, there's the volunteers from the Mindwise project, but there are roughly 50 First Citizens employees who are also acting as volunteers and serving as part of the Mindwise Sustainable Minds Volunteer Program. And then will be a part and parcel of the rollout of PreventSuicideTT.com. With their support, we are able to tangibly demonstrate our commitment to making a meaningful impact in our society. From all accounts, the sentiments have been positive, and I'll share 2 brief comments. One of the volunteers says, "I'm hoping the seeds of goodwill I plant will benefit others, but I also hope to get information that will support me as a parent and help in my relationships with colleagues and staff." And I'm a parent too. And this year, one of my girls is going through SEA. And it's already started. The immense pressure that you feel from that age. And what are the options? Maria mentioned it. Is really when those coping mechanisms might outweigh or not be enough to deal with the pain. And so even being part of this is a huge learning experience for me. And, I thank you guys. And another said, "I believe the knowledge gained will allow me to help the people in my life to find ways to nourish their minds and improve their mental health and well-being." And me and Rudy were talking about it earlier. There just simply isn't enough conversation around mental health, around suicide prevention. So thank you for bringing that to the fore. And to us, what today means in reality is putting the framework and systems in place that will allow all of us to learn, become equipped and empowered, and have access to the resources that can help us identify, address, and prevent mental health issues and suicide, which is, of course, in the interest of us all. So, on behalf of the First Citizens Foundation, we are honored to partner with all of you, and we truly look forward to today's initiative making a real and sustainable impact. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stone. I would now like to call on the UE Guild Vice President, Mr. Tyrese Lewis, to give his remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, dedicated student leaders, and the entire committee committed to suicide prevention, good day. So today, as we gather here to discuss the pressing matter of suicide prevention among our youth, we do so with a profound sense of purpose and observance in the World Suicide Prevention Month and the day that passed on September the 10th. So this designated month, marked by the color purple, serves as a poignant reminder of our shared commitment to eradicating the silent epidemic of suicide. We are reminded that the battle against this crisis requires sustained attention and action not only during this month, but throughout the entire year. So in an era where technological advancement have granted us unparalleled access to information and connectivity, it is a stark and painful irony that suicide remains one of the leading causes of death among our young population. So each lost life is not merely a statistic, it is an irreplaceable part of our collective humanity extinguished prematurely. So the urgency to act cannot be overstated. World Suicide Prevention Month serves as a beacon of hope, an opportunity to engage in collective reflection on how we can reduce suicide rates among our youth. It calls upon us to recognize the significance of mental health in our lives and the lives of those around us. And before we delve into the pivotal roles that the university and student leaders must play in preventing suicide prevention, and as we highlight the invaluable contribution of organizations like the Mindwise project, let us acknowledge that this is not a battle to be fought solely with facts and figures. It is a deeply emotional and profound human struggle. And to address it effectively, we must not only change policies and procedures, but also hearts and minds. So universities, as the bastions of knowledge and centers of personal transformation, have a unique moral obligation at the forefront of this battle, and the UE provides many of these services. We have our mental health services through our counseling and psychological department, CAPS, training and awareness, peer support through profound organizations like IGDS Ignite, that's our Institute of Gender and Development Studies, accessible resources, and most importantly, community building. And I must now extend heartfelt gratitude to organizations like the Mindwise Project and First Citizens, whose unwavering dedication to mental health awareness and suicide prevention has been an invaluable source of support for our communities. Your tireless efforts have brought comfort, hope, and vital resources to those in need. To our student leaders, you are not mere participants in this endeavor, you are its beating heart. Your leadership transcends the confines of the campus and the student government. It extends into the very fabric of our society. You have the power to affect not only the lives of your peers, but in the world around you. Lead by example, advocate unrelentingly for mental health awareness and the bolstering of support systems. Listen intently to your peers, not only to hear the voices, but to discern the unspoken words that may carry their pain. Do not hesitate to encourage them to seek help when needed, for sometimes the most potent gesture of compassion is the offer of a helping hand. In conclusion, as we commemorate World Suicide Prevention Month, let us pledge to be the generation that prioritizes mental health and creates an environment where our young persons feel valued, supported, and hopeful about their future. Let us remember that together as a community, we possess the strength to turn the tide of despair and bring forth a brighter tomorrow. Thank you, and let our collective efforts and collaborations with all different organizations here today illuminate the path towards a safer, more compassionate world for our youth, not only during this month, but throughout the year and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. St. Louis. I would now like to ask Ms. Tanya Western to give from the Rotary, the president of the Rotary Club, Port of Spain, Central Port of Spain.
Good afternoon, everyone. Earlier, are you hearing me? Is it? Yeah, okay, great. Earlier this year, our Rotary year starts in July, and earlier this year, we were thrown down a challenge by Rotary International to embrace mental health as one of the things that we plan for and that we create projects for. And for all of us, mental health, all of us, like everybody in the room, everywhere in the world, mental health is something that we deal with every day, whether we know it or not, whether we admit it or not. And so for us, as a Rotary Club, we had to figure out, how do we do this? It's such, a dangerous, a difficult topic to tiptoe around. What can we do? And we were blessed. We had a new member called Maria OBrien. And she's like, I could do stuff. And next thing we know, we are creating not just a way forward for my club of 40 members, our club of 40 members. We're creating a path for our entire district, which is 72 clubs, to create an opportunity to make mental health, to make suicide, to make talking about these things less taboo. Just yesterday, I was chatting with my mother, and she said to me, tell me about what you're going to tomorrow. I'm like, Mom, I have no idea. This is going to be the first time for me. And she's like, what makes you think you are qualified to speak on a stage about this? I'm like, that's exactly why I want to go, because I'm not. None of us, some of us may feel the way that we're not. The reality is that we may never become qualified to speak on a stage or to speak about mental health issues, but we have to be prepared to look out for the warning signals in the people around us, in ourselves as well. What are the things that we're seeing and hearing that could have told us that the other teacher when we were 22 was going to be thinking about suicide? What could have told me that last month Maria was considering, you know? What are the things that we need to look out for? So I have my notes here. I'm going to refer to them just quickly. Right. So Maria started us on this journey, not just for us as Rotarians, but also for our younger members, the Rotaractors. And she has brought together the Rotary family so that now we're all looking for opportunities through Rotary and Rotaract to make sure that it becomes something that we plan for. One of the hardest challenges that I had to face, it was so scary, was Maria saying to me, I need you to do a 30-second video on, 30 seconds is all she asked for, on suicide prevention. Oh my God. It was absolutely traumatic. I'm like, Maria, could you write my script? She's like, no, it has to come from in here. And you want me on video as well? So she started giving me some ideas, some suggestions, you know, and she talked about the statistics and the prevalence of the challenges that our young men have to go through, and that they are more prone to committing suicide than women. All sorts of things that I just didn't feel I could come to grips with, far less talk about. And then she mentioned the Garden with Wings, our pollinator project. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. When I think about what our volunteers say, being in the pollinator garden at the Botanic Gardens is a place of healing, connecting with the earth, connecting with other volunteers. It's a place that brings peace to those who go. So that is what I chose to talk about in my 30 seconds, encouraging other Rotary clubs and civic organizations to help create those safe spaces, create those spots that bring healing, that show us the positivity that exists in our world, because there's lots of wonderful things happening, but we often hear of the negatives. And something that we at our Rotary Club of Central Port of Spain very proud of is our Model UN. We've had the Model UN running for 20 years. And this year, today actually, was the first time that we had mental health as one of the topics for those 90 young participants to discuss and to listen. I think that deserves a round of applause. And so I mentioned those two initiatives because we may think individually, like my mother said to me, what are you doing going to talk about suicide? What, are you gone crazy? The reality is we each have an opportunity to make a difference through the university that we're at, through our friends, through the projects that we run, and it's up to us to find a way to make it relevant to the people around us. So I throw this challenge out to you all as well. Help create those safe and healing places that we all need, places that will be good for us and for everybody in our community. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. So to introduce the next speaker, we have the Rotaract District 7030 incoming District Rotaract Representative, Crystal Mohammed.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everyone. All protocols observed. So I am the District Rotaract Representative nominee for 2025 to 26. So firstly, I would like to extend hearty greetings on behalf of Rotaract District 7030 and our District Rotaract Representative, Ms. Christina Bassoon. So we are elated to be part of this initiative, an event as mental health has become a really plaguing issue for us in Rotaract, especially with our members and those who we work with in the communities. We want them to know that they are not alone, and we are here to support and lend a hand. Working alongside our brothers and sisters in our communities have shown us that throughout the years, the stresses of work, school, and family life have exacerbated our mental health and caused suicide prevention to be a key focus area to address in our generation and those to come. In this regard, we have committed our resources to addressing mental health and, by extension, suicide prevention through our various workshops, social programs, and initiatives to reduce the burden that the people in our communities carry. So, throughout my experience with working with the socially displaced persons, I have recognized how much they appreciate our efforts to be there for them and how much it helps. When I think about suicide, I also think about how difficult it must be for that person to think in that last moment that they have no other option, they have no one to turn to. So it's very important that we can recognize who needs us and actually be there for them. And if we can't be there for them, we need to direct them to the right persons who can actually be there for them. They need someone to be there for them. So it's crucial that we establish programs like these and have events like these to support those who need the help in our communities. I cannot stress how important it is that we incorporate suicide prevention and mental health in all aspects of our environment, whether it be at school, work, or home, because mental health has alarmingly become a plaguing issue we need to address for social cohesion and progress as a society. When persons face mental health challenges, it affects their performance and our progress as a society, because suicide has no face. There are no predetermining factors for suicide. It can be our boss, our co-worker, teacher, or even the leaders in our country. When we lose persons from suicide, we lose that part of what our society could have been. So it's imperative that we stand up against suicide and let them know that we can and will get through this together. Therefore, I urge you to lend an ear, help direct your friends in the right places to seek help and support, and let them go to events like these, even invite them to events like these, because these are the events that will actually help them to understand what they are going through and know that they are not alone. So let's be our brother's keeper and create a mental health friendly environment and stop them from taking their lives. Now, something that I did not plan on doing, but given the stories that I heard today, I would also like to share my own experience with mental health and suicide. This is the first time that I'm going to actually open up and share this, and I think today is the right platform to share this. So when I was younger, I've never told anybody this beyond my family. When I was younger, I was a victim of sexual assault 3 times to 3 different men. From the ages of 5, 8, and 11. I never told my family until I was about 13 years old because I was so embarrassed. I had all these suicidal thoughts as a child. I used to go on the internet, search, where can I get help? If I'm thinking to kill myself, where can I get help? I'm looking for numbers to call, people to talk to, and I'm so embarrassed because I don't want my family to know, because I felt as though, the social stigma with it, the culture that we live in. Everybody going to talk about it, everybody going to hear about it in the community. And, if there were programs like this when I was a child, or a website to go to, or hotlines to call, maybe I wouldn't have had to go through the depression and anxiety that I felt all those years of my life. But, I'm so happy to see this program here today, and I look forward to what it brings. I have total confidence it's going to bring tremendous success, and it's going to be so beneficial for the youths in our communities. So I feel so honored to be here to speak here today amongst you brilliant minds. And, Rotaract is here to support as much as we can. And I thank you, and have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for this to be the platform where you open up and share. And we can all recognize that the courage that Crystal would have had to overcome to share that personal story. So, I would like to now ask for remarks from the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassador Representative, Mr. Luke James Trim. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luke James Shrim, CARICOM Youth Ambassador for the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And while I wear many hats, this afternoon I stand before you as Vice President for International External Affairs and Partnerships of the Tobago and Trinidad Youth Ambassador National Executive. And most importantly, I stand before you this afternoon as a survivor of suicide and my battle with depression. So I'm tasked to bring remarks at this monumental event. And note that I use the word monumental to describe this event because what we are witnessing here this afternoon is one step closer towards reducing the stigma around suicide and mental health. Now, just allow me to shed a little youthful perspective here. Now, as young people, we know when we approach our West Indian parent and we say, Mom or Dad, I am depressed, their immediate response is, what you have to be depressed about? I have to pay the bills. I just work like dog to mine here, and you living in my house rent-free. So what depress you talking about? And these responses negate the fact that young people experience internal battles that they try to fight every day. Battles such as poor school performance, sexual orientation, abuse. Some of us are bullied, struggling with feelings of worthlessness and inadequacy, and even trying to navigate through a relationship breakup. And all this goes to say that it is truly amazing that young people can be a part of this initiative that works by identifying the individual, social, and structural determinants of mental health, and then intervening to reduce risks, build resilience, and establish supportive environments for mental health and suicide prevention. The future is youth. Young people are the future. But as youths, we cannot be effective agents of change on the outside while struggling to survive on the inside. So I think it's fair to say that the Mindwise project truly deserves a round of applause. The TTYA is committed to continuously advocating for mental health and suicide prevention, and we are truly honored to partner with passionate, like-minded individuals. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Trump. I would now like to ask the Caribbean Regional Youth Council representative, Ms. Chelsea Antoine.
Distinguished guests, partners, and fellow advocates for mental health, good afternoon. As a young public health professional, it is a particular honor for myself to stand here and participate in such a significant event. An event which rightfully comes at a time when we are tasked to collectively navigate some of society's challenging issues. It is a moment, therefore, that I wish to start with gratitude to Mindwise as I deliver remarks on behalf of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. Amid the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and its profound impact on mental health, we must address this escalating frequency of mental health issues and resulting tragedies. Further, persistent global challenges have heightened the severity of these matters, and the pressing need for accessible information and support from the public continues. In these challenging times, the role of youth organizations and young people have never been more pivotal. The launch of this initiative, therefore, and the Youth Gatekeepers Declaration seamlessly resonate with the overarching theme of World Suicide Prevention Day 2021 to 2023, which is creating hope through action. The theme serves as a compelling call to action and a reminder that there exists an alternative to suicide, and that through our collective actions, we have the capacity to encourage hope and advocate and strengthen the mechanisms of prevention. The Caribbean Regional Youth Council is committed to continue prioritizing mental health and suicide prevention as part of our strategic pillar to advance wellness and good health practices for Caribbean young people. We remain steadfast in our collaborative efforts to achieve this alongside our primary stakeholders, which are national youth councils, valued partners such as Mindwise, the Commonwealth Secretariat, CARICOM, the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, and the UN Major Group for Children and Youth. In closing, CRIC extends our congratulations to Mindwise and their proactive efforts and successful launch of this impactful initiative. This initiative represents a resounding call of action, inviting us all to be gatekeepers of hope and agents of change right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. So I would now like to ask the representative from PAHO, WHO, Dr. Erica Wheeler, to give her remarks.
See, what's the time? Oh, it's almost evening. So, good afternoon, evening, everyone. I couldn't see everyone who was in the audience, but I want to begin by thanking Maria very much for inviting PAHO to this event. And I am so impressed by the support that's being given from Rotary, involvement of the Rotaracts, the First Citizens Foundation, and UWI. Now, I believe that the reason why Maria invited me here is to talk about what we in PAHO are doing to support the whole issue of mental health as well as suicide prevention. And whenever I come to speak as the PAHO WHO representative, I always speak not just on my own behalf, so to speak, as a representative, but I also speak on behalf of our director in Washington and our director general, because all the programs that we have at the country level are a reflection of the work of both PAHO and WHO. So I really want to thank Maria for the invitation. I think I will say some things on script and some things off script about what we're doing. But I want to begin by saying that we in PAHO and WHO do subscribe to the belief that every life lost to suicide is a tragedy, that it severely impacts not only individuals, but of course, families and communities. We know it is estimated that for each suicide that is completed, there are likely more than 20 suicide attempts. Just think about that, 20 suicide attempts. And that while more females may attempt suicide, the rate of completed suicides among males is more than 3 times higher than in females. And I think that is a very important statistic that cuts across many other health issues where women seek help and more readily than men. And I think it is such a tragedy that our men feel that they are not able to express themselves in terms of how they feel at times in their lives where they may not feel able to cope emotionally. We are socialized into believing that men must always be strong, whatever that means, and that, you know, they must always lead and never show weakness, whatever that means too. But all of us, without any exception, at some point in our lives, have that need for support, someone to talk to. And for those who we speak to, we also need to sometimes consult professionals. There is no shame in it. We are all human. We all encounter problems at some point in time in our lives. So this is nothing to be ashamed of, and it is really a tragedy that we find that our men are the ones that, feel that they have nowhere to turn or they shouldn't turn to anyone lest they be looked down upon. We really have to eradicate that idea amongst young people. It is such a dangerous and unnecessary one. And suicide is the third highest leading cause of death among young people aged 20 to 24 in the Americas. People 45 to 59 years old have the highest suicide rates in the region of the Americas, followed by those 70 years and older. So yes, even older people also commit suicide. And there is this shocking figure that in the region of the Americas, because of course PAHO covers North America as well as Latin America and the Caribbean. In the region of the Americas, we have 98,000 suicide deaths every year. They were reported between the years of 2015 to 2019, with the suicide rate in North America and in the non-Hispanic Caribbean, so the English-speaking Caribbean, higher than the regional rate. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's estimated to be 8.3 per 100,000 in 2019, which is the 8th highest rate among the countries of the region, and just above that median rate of 6.2 per 100,000. So yes, we do have issues here that need to be addressed, and the work that started here today must be seen as foundational, but it needs to grow extensively amongst young people as much as possible. In the region of the Americas, we are the region with the greatest increase in the level of suicides between 2000 and 2019, sad to say. There's also evidence that there were even greater increases in suicide rates, of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, but that was global. We know the kinds of stresses, loneliness, and isolation cause. So it is really a significant public health issue that is often surrounded by stigma, by myths and taboos, and some of you have already been opening up on those. It's such, maybe wonderful is not the right word, but you know when you are in the right place, when people feel they're in a safe space that they can talk about these things, because suicide and mental health issues in general in our communities in the Caribbean are simply not spoken of enough. I come from a mental health background. Maybe it's something Maria didn't know, that, my studies have been in that area, some of my practice. I lived in England for a long time, and I actually led an NGO which catered for ethnic minorities who had mental health problems, because again, there was a stigma not only in those communities, but they were underserved. So I know quite well. I was saying, remind me of your name? No. Saran. We were talking about the fact that my parents, both my parents worked at St. Anne's Hospital. My mother was a psychiatric nurse, and my father was the deputy chief male nurse. I practically grew up in St. Anne's. I used to go there all the time. The patients used to talk to me. They would ask me for 10 cents and a cigarette. I used to go to the carnival parties. I understand the issues of stigma, but I never really understood it until I became an adult, and I realized the kinds of reasons why people ended up there in the first place. And it's because they did not get help when they were younger. People did not care. You may not know this, but in some societies, like I did research on mental health when I lived in England, and in the Pakistani community, there's a word called pagal, which means mad. And when somebody calls you pagal, that's it, you're written off for life. So there's a lot of stigma in many ways and in communities across the world about mental illness, but yet it is part of who we are. If you break your leg, everybody can see you with a cast. But if you have an emotional problem, nobody can see. And there are times when you feel, yes, nobody cares, or you're afraid to talk to other people because they would see you as not coping. What is wrong with you, as somebody has said? I'll talk a little bit more about a project we did with young people, and actually children and adolescents, starting from 10 years old up to 17, around mental health and the kinds of feedback we got. But we know that suicide is preventable, and that is what today is about, to spread that message, that it is preventable with timely, evidence-based, and often low-cost mental health support and interventions. Let that be something that you carry around with you, that knowledge that it is preventable. Tackling the complexity of suicidal behavior starts with identifying risk and protective factors. It's important to raise awareness of the risk factors, to reduce the means of suicide, and to enhance protective factors to build resilience in order to effectively reduce suicide rates. While the link between suicide and mental health disorders is well established, many suicides could also happen impulsively in moments of crisis or trauma, such as financial loss and relational issues. Impulsive suicide can be prevented by restricting access to lethal means. The theme that we had this year for World Suicide Prevention Day, and we know the day has passed, creating hope through action, this really reflects the need for collective action to address this urgently as a public health issue. Focusing on suicide prevention becomes especially important to build social connections. Again, that was broken a lot during COVID. But in everyday lives, as we have heard from very young people, children, those social connections are broken even between them. We must raise awareness and provide hope to persons who feel suicidal. Reaching out to loved ones for their mental health and their well-being could be life-saving. The evidence-based actions to support suicide prevention can be included in this acronym called LIFE, L-I-F-E, and it stands for this. L stands for limiting access to the means of suicide. I, interacting with the media for responsible reporting, and we shouldn't let them off the hook, because sometimes the way suicide is reported is very, very negative and blames the individual. So that's even more stigmatizing to families and friends left behind. F for fostering skills of young people, which is critical, and it's one of the things that I would like to think of it as the beginning of a movement, what Mindwise is doing. So it is important to foster skills for coping and knowing when to reach out for help and where to get help. And E in the LIFE acronym for early identification and support for those in crisis. So just a little bit about what we in PAHO and WHO have done. We have worked with the media to change journalistic coverage of suicide. We have collaborated with the Ministry of Health to provide training for members of the media to promote responsible media reporting on suicide, and that was followed by a period of monitoring the stories that were published across media houses. We also, in collaboration with Mindwise, we've launched the hashtag #DoYourShare Stigma Reduction campaign. That was launched last November at the Nallis Youth Library with Maria, who really is a stalwart. We can't thank her enough for her collaboration. And it has branched out to UE and other locations since November last year. We have also continued to support the Ministry of Health in strengthening their mental health program and integrating the community mental health services into primary health care to increase access to much-needed services. And particular emphasis has been given to suicide reduction strategies for health workers. We also continue to work with youth to foster life skills amongst them, and we are particularly pleased then to be part of this collaborative youth call to raise awareness and implement actions that can prevent suicide. So I just want to tell you a little bit about a program that we did with children and adolescents. We realized, of course, certainly with my background, but we also came into contact with an NGO that was very keen to work with young people. And we did a program where they were involved in expressing their feelings coming out of COVID, their isolation, their loneliness, this business about, kids telling their parents they're not coping and they're feeling depressed, and the parents answering, as one of the previous colleagues said, what it is you have to be depressed about. You have everything, and you're at home and you have food, you get clothes. What nonsense is that, And what was good about this is that the parents got involved in working with the children, and the parents learned so much about what the children were feeling. And I'm talking about children between the ages of 10 and 17, right? So really, some of them were really young, but we got them involved in dance, in poetry. They made their own poems, they produced art, and over the period of time they were doing their artwork, we saw it go from very dark colors, navy blue and black, talking about, very negative feelings. Each of them expressed themselves in the way they were feeling at the beginning. And as the months went by, with their interaction, with that social cohesion amongst those children, the colors started turning to reds and yellows and sunshine, and their language changed, the way they interacted with each other. They formed bonds with each other. We actually ended up doing a display of their art across Trinidad and Tobago. And we invited the Minister of, I think it's Community, Youth and Sport as well. But in the end, there was a song by, was it Neve Chatterlal and Marge Blackman? And it was called We Have Love, because out of it, the bonds of love that they felt, but the importance of being able to talk to each other about their feelings, their mental health, their feelings of whether it be suicide or depression, was so much that it lifted them out of where they were. But they were not in therapy. They had each other. They were able to talk frankly with each other. And every time we traveled around the country, about 4 of those young people actually stood up in front of an audience and talked about how they felt at the beginning, what the program did for them, and at the end of it, where that place that they had come to. So never underestimate the need to talk, to express in spaces that are safe and non-judgmental. This program touched me so much because every time I heard that song, and I wish I could have played it today, it's called We Have Love. Every time I hear it, I cry. It doesn't matter how many times I hear it, because I know where it came from. I know where those children started and where they ended, and how much better off they were, whether it be not feeling depressed anymore or not feeling suicidal, their parents understanding what they were talking about. And you know what was really beautiful? We had a young Down syndrome boy in this group. Do you know he was the only one whose picture was sunshine and the beach from beginning to end? He had no concept of COVID, of sadness, of nothing, because his parents brought him up in an atmosphere of love and care. He could say anything. He used to call his mother his wife sometimes. His family was very close, and he was able to express how he felt. So when people were drawing pictures of tears and sadness and brokenness and wanting to take their own lives, he had none of that in him. So, we can't lose this concept of love and care for each other. And too much in the era in which we live, when we are separated from each other by social media. We get into our phones, and so many times I have seen teenagers sitting down next to each other, and all of them are on their phones, and none of them are talking to each other, you know? But yet, you know, there are so many problems. So I just want to say that this is really a great move that Mindwise has made, and I would like to see more partners come in, more support, because we don't want this to be a flash in the pan. We want it to continue. It is great that Rotary was involved. It was great to meet someone from Rotary who worked with my husband. And I know Rotary does fantastic work, and to have Rotaracts with all their energy to put behind it, to have UE and the students, I think it is something that I would like to see turn into a youth movement. So all of us, family members, friends, co-workers, community members, educators, religious leaders, healthcare professionals, political officials, and government, everyone can take action, whether it be individually or in the responsible jobs that we have. In my case, as someone who heads up an organization of the country level, I can tell you, yes, both suicide and the broader mental health work is something that is integral to what we do. We always have activities that highlight the importance of good mental health, and as I read out before, we work with the government, but we work across different organizations. So everyone, all of us can take action, but it's not only we must take action to reduce rates of suicide in Trinidad and Tobago. And I do really hope that this work that has started today would really go across the Caribbean, because we have youth ambassadors, we have young people who have an interest and the ability to work across the region. And I would love to see this become a movement across the Caribbean. So thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wheeler. We'll now have an address by the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Advocacy Network from Samantha.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Samantha Samuel, and I am representing the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Advocacy Network, otherwise known as TTN. We are very grateful and honored to be a partner in this movement with the Mindwise project for World Suicide Prevention Day. Mental health is very important, and in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, it is not spoken about enough. Suicide has always been around. Suicide is something that has affected from generations back, and now has become even more prevalent in the younger generations. As a youth-led organization, we emphasize the need to put policies and programs in place to focus on youth development. Mental health is a very important aspect of a person's life, from as young as a child to even becoming an adult. We all know that mental health, it resides in everyone. And so in our attempt to combat suicide, combat depression, we really need to put things in place to work towards breaking that stigma and starting the conversation about mental health. Starting in schools, making students aware of coping mechanisms, what mental health is, what depression is, what anxiety is, what are the warning signs of someone who might be prone to self-harm. We also need to work on educating parents, because it's parents who set that guide and that pattern for children who will become adults and have really unhealthy coping mechanisms. And this is where problems arise with suicide and coping with stress. So we are grateful to be here we really hope to see a larger impact on suicide prevention through this action and partnering with all of the distinguished bodies who are also represented here today. As someone who from a very young age was exposed to, persons being around me in my environment and my family who were suicidal, and not knowing what it was the cause, it was very confusing to me. And now looking back on it, now that I have knowledge and I'm aware of mental health, it really raises a concern that there are children who may be exposed to these things and they might react in a completely different way. So we emphasize the need to seek help, to seek therapy, and we acknowledge that not everyone has access to the financial resources for therapy. However, our country does have programs in place. We have free mental health resources, there's the psychiatric clinics, the St. Anne's Mental Hospital. So we do have things in place. It's really about bringing this awareness to persons about the resources we already have at hand and how to deal with things, what measures to take, and when to take those measures. Every life counts and every life matters. We are proud to be part of this movement once again, and we look forward to making impacts in persons' lives, regardless of race, skin color, gender. Mental health is something that's important to everyone, and everyone deserves a right to have a good, decent, and healthy functioning life. Thank you.
We will now have an address from the Honorable Minister of Health, Tyrese.
A pleasant good afternoon to all. I would like to thank Mindwise and all other stakeholders involved for contributing to this launch of the Gatekeepers Declaration for Suicide Prevention 2023 project. This is surely a pivotal step which displays our unwavering commitment to protecting our nation's citizens, especially our nation's youth, from the perils of suicide. Suicide continues to have a major impact on our population, leaving families and loved ones devastated due to its unfortunate occurrence. The Ministry of Health recognizes that every life lost due to suicide is a tragedy. It is even more troubling when our country's youth die by suicide, whatever the contributing factors. 11 persons under the age of 25 died by suicide in 2022. We must all work together to ensure that no one in our country will decide to end their life by suicide when faced with social, financial, cultural, or any other types of difficulty. As a nation, we have shown tremendous resilience in the aftermath of the recently concluded COVID-19 pandemic. But the stark reality is that many people, including our nation's youth, have been significantly impacted physically, economically, socially, and mentally. The World Health Organization states that 1 in 4 persons will at some time in their life suffer from a mental health illness. To commemorate World Suicide Prevention Day, September 10th, and World Mental Health Day, October 10th, the Ministry of Health is executing several key initiatives during the months of September and October. These initiatives are geared towards increasing awareness of the available psychosocial support services across all 5 regional health authorities and via the findcare.com website. These initiatives are geared towards increasing awareness of the available psychosocial support services across all 5 regional health authorities and via the findcare.com website. In recognition of World Mental Health Day 2023, the ministry will also be hosting its annual mental health awareness campaign, Paint the Town Green, which is aligned with the ministry's National Mental Health Policy 2019 to 2029. The aim of this campaign is to increase mental health awareness and to collectively challenge the stigma which prevents help seeking. The ministry has also declared October 9th to October 13th, 2023, National Behavioral Health Week 2023. This week involves a multifaceted array of activities coordinated with various public and private stakeholders, which seek to raise the visibility of mental health as a national priority. It is in keeping with our inclusive and collaborative mission to promote the benefits of good mental health well-being that the Ministry of Health continues to support the Mindwise project in their mission to promote mental health awareness in Trinidad and Tobago, especially among the nation's youth. The Youth Gatekeepers Declaration for Suicide Prevention 2023 is an expansion of the varying initiatives which the Mindwise project has spearheaded, which targets youth segments of the population with the aim of inculcating a positive mindset towards mental health and encourage help-seeking behavior when persons face mental health challenges. This declaration unites numerous public and private entities, many of which are dedicated NGOs that consistently make meaningful contributions through much-needed resources and expertise to empower our nation's youth to positively influence the behavior of their peers. The Youth Gatekeepers Declaration also aligns closely with the Ministry of Health's introduction of a community-based model of mental health care, while adding as a key element the involvement of the youth population as mental health champions or advocates in various communities. Of the utmost importance is the Youth Gatekeepers Declaration for Suicide Prevention 2023. It is the commitment by organizations involved in this project to include suicide prevention and to implement PAHO WHO's psychological first aid training and suicide prevention training on the agendas during the period September 2023 to 2025. The establishment of this declaration adds another key dimension to the mental health and psychosocial support services network in Trinidad and Tobago. This network was formed in response to the COVID-19 pandemic to increase accessibility to a range of psychosocial support and mental health services for persons in crisis across sectors and levels of the society. Launched in January 2021, FindCareTT.com is a mental health crisis support directory where Trinbagonians can search for mental health and social care services in emergency situations. Services available include mental health and addiction services, counseling, gender-based violence support, services for children and adolescents, coping materials, videos and mobile apps, amongst others. These commitments, along with the support of the Ministry of Health, will be instrumental in improving the landscape of mental health support for our nation's youth and preventing premature death by suicide. As we embark on this journey together, I thank Mindwise, the World Health Organization, the Pan American Health Organization, and all other volunteers and stakeholders who have joined together to advocate for our nation's youth in promoting enabling environments where suicide is prevented and mental health is a human right for all. I thank you.
like to thank the Honourable Member of Parliament for his address. Now we would like to take a moment. I don't know if you all know, but every 40 seconds worldwide, we lose someone to suicide. So we would like to take 1 minute to recognize those we have lost. Normally, during Suicide Prevention Day, we light a candle. This is a safe space, we cannot light a candle, but we ask that you all turn on your flashlights to shed light on this issue. So if y'all can turn on the lights. Thank you so much. I just want to take a moment to check in on everyone. I know these topics can be heavy, and I know that it's usually difficult to have these conversations, but it's important to check in, make sure everyone is okay, make sure everyone is dealing. Yeah. So to go on, I would like to introduce our declaration, our Gatekeepers declaration. Ms. Rihanna, can I?
Hi everyone, good afternoon. All protocols observed. So our draft declaration, we, the youth, are launching our 2023 Youth Gatekeepers Declaration for Suicide Prevention, which targets youth organizations throughout the region, but it will be launching here first in Trinidad and Tobago. For our founding partners, we hope will include some of who are here today, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Social Development, Mindwise Projects, of course, the UE Guild, PAHO, WHO, Trinidad and Tobago Youth Council, Pride CC, the Rotary District 2030, the Rotary 7030 Mental Health, Interact, the Silver Lining Foundation, Lifeline, Childline, Let's Unpack It, Global Shapers, Child Right Ambassadors, the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassadors, CARICOM, the Youth Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and NALIS Youth Adult Library. So in our youth declaration, we have 4 points that we are focusing on. Firstly, the commitments by youth organizations and organizations that work with youth to include suicide prevention in their agenda for the period of September 2023 to 2025. We also would like commitments to implement PAHO WHO's psychological first aid training and suicide prevention training in their agendas during the September 2023 to 2025 period. And also the commitment to include DEI and mental health as part of their leadership action and representation for their communities by officially nominating a DEI and mental health officer or champion for their community, whose role will be to advocate and represent these causes. Finally, commitment to reduce the stigma around suicide and mental health through storytelling and actions that promote lived experiences and promoting activities for all communities to foster safe spaces for discussion and inclusion for all persons from all backgrounds, genders, religions, ethnicities, differently abled persons, and persons living with NCDs and mental health conditions. This declaration will be distributed, and consultations will continue virtually until the hosting of a National Adolescent and Youth Wellness Roundtable for World Mental Health Month in October 2023 in commemoration of World Mental Health Day 2023.
Thank you, Rihanna. We will now have Rihanna joined by Rashida. Rihanna would have been our past team lead for suicide prevention team, and Rashida is our new team lead for the suicide prevention team, and they would have done so much work on this website. So we want both of them to introduce it to you all.
So we would like to introduce our website, preventsuicidetc.com, which was created by youth for all of us to utilize. Everything on this website was created by us, starting from the first cohort of volunteers in 2021, and also our interns in 2022. So we start with our homepage, where you'll have resources for persons in need. So that begins with emergency resources, and also resources for those that are trying to get help and to be there for persons that they know. And we also have resources for persons looking to learn more about suicide and to help in that avenue. As we go through, you're going to notice that we have a page for our local suicide statistics, which was compiled using the TTPS statistics, and they are fully updated. So in the last 7 years of analyzing these statistics, we have lost 821 lives to suicide here in Trinidad and Tobago. Of those 821, 307 were persons aged 20 to 39 years. And then from here, when we look at our homepage, we have our prevention training, which focuses on the youth gatekeeper training, which will target youth firstly and then expand to everyone.
So here you will find our emergency information page. This has all the resources they need in case they are experiencing a crisis in suicide. So you have, forgive me, 1 second, right? So you'll have hotlines like the one from the Ministry of Social Development, which is 800-COPE. You'll also have resources from Lifeline, from the TTAP, and these are some things that is necessary for those experiencing crisis to realize that there are resources available. Most of them are recent, but there are some which were still available from before, and now that there are more avenues for them to reach out for help, they can find it on this page. There are more resources here as well. We have local articles. We also have articles and videos expressing how they can seek help, how they can cope, as well as looking for stories that are local, because it is more important for persons in Trinidad to find experiences that are relatable to theirs, rather than hearing opinions from other countries. It has more profound impact. So you'll see we have resources from our psychologists like Dr. Chatur, who was one of the key instigators for the gatekeeping training we have in the Mindwise project from the past cohort and this year in 2023.
Thank you so much, Rihanna and Rashida. By extension, we thank the entire suicide prevention team because it's really good work and really heavy work. Now, I would like to ask Ms. Maria OBrien to give some remarks again.
Because of the extent of our commitments today, we wanted to do a much more detailed demo, but we realized we can do that in post online. Besides, we would have to get beds for you guys to sleep here. One of the things I wanted to mention was that one of the powerful opportunities here is the partnership between a lot of community-strong stakeholders. One of the exciting things of working with the FCB volunteers, of whom we have 48, and I think 20 of them were trying to get here today, and I think that was amazing. And it was constant feedback, we are on our way. Sorry. And this is the relationship. Oh, is it on? Okay. I do want to mention, it is through my own personal growth, professionally understanding my needs. That is the reason why I joined Rotary. And it is one of the reasons why we started Mindwise and the volunteer program. I do think that there's a lot of purpose here in this room that has brought us together. I think we're going to find more and more partners, including not just on the ministry level. This is happening on a small island developing state level. Some of you know I'm working with lived experience work there. You're seeing representation and inclusion and giving people opportunities to actually implement real policy and change. I'm just waiting for the day when youth are running the youth ministry. That's all I'm saying, So we're going to see a slow, gradual implementation of things that we thought would never happen. And two of these groups, I really believe, are corporate community, which is First Citizens and other amazing groups that are investing in social change, and then community-based organizations like Rotary. When I joined Rotary, it was like a baptism in community. Fellowship, that's what we call it, right? And I was kind of like, how does all of this work? Because it is so massive, and it's happening every week. Not like once a month. Every week, multiple times a week. So connecting dedicated people is really just all I see myself doing, and connecting all of these young people to their opportunity to work together for social impact has been some of the proudest work I've ever done. So I want to recognize, because we have several other initiatives that are also being launched this cohort, but it is the work that is going to be combined of the cohort before. So this is how our volunteer program works. It is like a pass the torch program, yeah? So each cohort passes the torch from the last cohort. They have to get familiar with their files. It takes a little minute, yeah? And then they have to figure out, what are we going to do that is meaningful to us? So where Rihanna left off, Reseda continued. And where Reseda leaves off, someone else will continue. And they will work with partners such as yourselves, who will decide, this is what we think we want on a regional platform like this. And then the volunteer program can implement it for you. That's what we're here to do, to create solutions for sustainable impact. So I really want to thank all of the families that are here today. But the very first group I want to thank, because I've never met you in person before, so I'm actually not sure who you are, other than what I've seen in Zoom. Can the suicide prevention team members that are here today stand up? Because some of you have never turned on your cameras and you know it. Some people spoke to me and I was like, I know that voice. Some of the work that was done was some of the most passionate work that I've seen. And it went on not for 6 months, it went on for over 18 months. These teams did not stop working long after the program ended. We were still calling each other every week, right? We were like, hey guys, what are you doing? Because we became so close with this particular project especially. And the other projects as well that are all gonna be launching soon. Yes, Anna, I'm looking at you. You know, October's your month, yeah. So we are very, very excited to put youth at the center, but also my job is being a connector. And it is one of my happiest moments to see all of these communities connect today. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to do to take it forward. And as you can see, you're going to have a lot of ecosystem support. I'm challenging you as a past youth leader in your position. There were not these opportunities when I was a youth leader. People were not asking us to be in the room. They were giving us 2 minutes in between an energy sponsor. Yeah? Be like, hey, we were giving you like an hour. But we gotta like bump you. So now, youth is in focus. Take advantage of this moment. Because it matters what you do, you know, but it's not the burden is on you. Your future depends on how you take advantage of this opportunity. And I'm happy to play a role. We are happy to play a role. This is the future of Mindwise in this room. I'm really, really happy to be here. So I want to thank everyone for coming out. I'm going to hand over now to Rosita to do the vote of thanks. And that's just my personal thanks to everyone in the room.
Thank you, Miss Maria, so much. Are you all able to hear me? Okay, just making sure. All right. All protocols observed, but before I get into the formalities, I'd like to start it off a bit different. So I'd like to start us off with a quote from Neil Gaiman. If you all know him, he's the one who wrote The Sandman. Picture this. I am anti-life, the beast of judgment. I am the dark at the end of everything, the end of universes, gods, worlds, of everything. And so, I turn to you all and ask, what will you be then? Your answer to such a hopeless question should always be, I am hope. Honorable ministers, the UE Guild, ambassadors and representatives of Google Women Techmakers, PAHO, WHO, Office of the Prime Minister, the Rotaract District 7030, our sponsors from FCB, Mindwise student volunteers, and our valuable supporters and youth partners. Each and every single individual in this room, and even those present with us online, you represent the pillar of hope for those who are in suicide crisis, the ones whose lives have been encased in this shadow of hopelessness. We commend your commitment to stand with the Mindwise's launch of the Youth Gatekeepers Declaration for Suicide Prevention and guide the trajectory of those alienated or plagued by suicidality. Now, I must admit, listening to you all speak, it was very hard not to write down points because I was so engrossed in what you all were saying. As a youth myself who experienced a lot of suicidal ideation, it is very hard to picture myself here right now. Many of you all said that our youth are our future. For me, that is true, but in a different scenario. The youth are the ones who gave me my future, particularly my 2 siblings, and I know they're looking at me right now at home. It isn't easy asking for help, trying to be on platforms such as this. And I'd like to mention something that Dr. Stone said. You talked about impact. To counter inaction or the inability by others or even well-known institutions to empathize and give support to fellow human beings. I cannot commend you enough for that. So many times we have come across institutions where they claim we are family, but do they act on it? They don't. This is the first time I've actually seen it being done, and as someone who used to be a bystander, you won't believe the impact it will leave on our young youth. Thank you. I turn to Mr. Rudy. My God, you have a way with words. I could listen to you speak for a very long time. You spoke of purpose and community for that young youth. The value of each person and the ability to be acknowledged is necessary, to be heard, to be seen. They often say that we silence those who have suicidal ideation or suffer with suicide. We don't silence them. They talk. We don't listen. We talk over them. We decide to think we should give advice. You don't need to give advice. You just need to listen. And I want to commend Mr. Rudy for that, because you gave them a space to be heard, to be seen. That isn't easy to do in a conservative society like Trinidad and Tobago. For that, I must thank you, Mr. Rudy. I need to thank Ms. Weston. You mentioned advocacy even when you do not know what to say. You do not hold all the experience. But you're still willing to do away with giving just generic or passing words and actually begin to learn what you can do, what you can offer them, and undergoing training to be their new keeper. That isn't easy to do, and I must commend you for that. As someone who knows the impact just a mere passing word can have on a youth who is struggling, the fact that you are still willing and you want to do more, it touches the heart immensely. Thank you so much. For Dr. Wheeler, I do not know where to say or how to start to express my deepest thanks to you. The impact you are making, especially when you relay the statistics for suicide rates in our region. Did you all know that Trinidad and Tobago is ranked number 5 among Caribbean countries for suicide rates? We are 8.7%. 8.7%. And in talking of these statistics, we need to account for this. Social responsibility. We have a social responsibility to these people, no matter their age, no matter what they are facing. That is important. So apart with social responsibility, we have a moral obligation as well to be there for them, to stick through to these commitments we are making. Dr. Wheeler, thank you so much. You are a true living testimony of that. Thank you so much. And lastly, Ms. Maria, you talked of technology being your safe space. How many of us can say that's not the case? We live behind personas online. I certainly do, especially during the pandemic. It was not easy to connect, especially if you are a youth not understanding how to connect with the world. I can tell you, I'm autistic. Connecting with people is very difficult. Just to be here is a struggle in itself. And yet, I'm still pushing forward because of campaigns for this. You gave us a platform, you gave us a voice. It's something extremely remarkable.
Because Rosita was saying that she felt that she had difficulty connecting with people. How many of us in this room feel connected to Rosita? Come on! Come on, Rosita! Just want to like lay this up.
Well, thank you for that. Ooh, I need that little ego boost. Well, thank you so much. Being able to see this come to life, especially virtually, because in institutions such as schools, in community centers, in religious institutions, the youth, we don't have a say. We have to do what we are told. But online, it's different. We actually have an impact. So to actually be able to do this, it feels like home. It feels like a second home. And while I talk about technology, we had a virtual campaign this month where we would light a candle and we would post our candle online. I encourage you all to do the same. Hashtag prevent suicide TT, hashtag do your share TT. This is important. We want to keep that momentum going. And words of gratitude may never be enough to convey the profound solidarity you all have shown to those struggling with their internal demons. And as I conclude, I implore more momentum. Building up this is important, but I don't want this to die, because hope is a flame. And I like to remind you all this. In fact, these are words I've spoken to somebody who would have finished previous training when we were in UWI together. And they were thinking maybe they should stop there. But I kept saying hope is a flame, and I left them with this. When the embers are snuffed out as fleetingly as my conviction, would you forgive my heart sojourn? That is where I stand when somebody will tell me they should just give up. Because it's so easy for me to go back to suicidalization, especially if you are willing to give up. Don't do that. You think this is just a temporary thing? For me, this is long term. It is a continuous battle. I commend you all for continuing. But with the momentum, the pendulum has started moving. Don't let it stop. Continue that trajectory. And thank you all so much for your support. It truly means a lot. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Rashida. I would now like to invite Fernanda Prasad. She will be doing a short mindfulness movement to manage stress. So these are some practices that we can now incorporate going forward.
Hi everyone. So I'm not going to use the mics because I have to move, so that'll be a little tough. So my background, just quickly, I actually studied psychology here at UNIC, and I'm working right now on completing my thesis, and that's using my yoga training, where I trained in India to become a teacher, and I'm using that to work with anxiety. So that's where my thesis is based, yoga and anxiety. Okay. So it's going to be a little tough for me to move and use the mic, but I'm going to demonstrate. I would like everyone to participate. So if you can sit forward a little in your chairs, please. Feet planted nice and firm. And you're just sitting upright. Good. So as you move forward and you sit, notice from your lower back. Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier for me. Is everyone hearing me? Yeah? Great. All right. So you're seated with your feet planted. I want everyone to press their feet, even in your heels, as much as you can to the floor. Good. And you're going to notice from your lower back if you're sitting upright or if you're slumping. So in the mindfulness part of things, your body and your mind are connected, and they send signals to you. So when you slump and you're sitting with your shoulders down, you're coming inward like this, it's like a protective, I need to be safe feeling. When you open up and you expand your chest and you bring your shoulders back, you're saying, I'm confident, I'm here, I'm okay. Now, the next part of this, everyone, as you bring your shoulders open and back, just keeping your arms at your side, just as you sit, just pull your shoulders open and back. Now, as you open your chest, you're also allowing your breath to flow. So you're not restricting your breathing, you're opening and expanding your chest. Now I ask everyone to close their eyes and take one deep breath in and lift that breath up through your chest and expand. Now as you exhale, slowly release your breath. One more time, lift up into your chest, expand your breath, and slowly exhale. Now as you take one last breath up into your chest, really plant your feet down, press them to the floor, and feel grounded. Feel that strength from your feet up into your chest, and as you exhale, gently release. Good. Keeping your eyes closed, ask everyone to notice how they feel, how their lower back feels, how your chest, your shoulders feel, and now how your nervous system has responded to that slowing of your breath. Now gently open your eyes.
every day, in every moment, whether it's school, whether it's work, whatever environment it is, your family life, you can take a minute, 1 minute, to sit and breathe deeply from your lower back and your spine when you lift. Using the imagery, pause and imagine that breath, and you use it to flow directly up, and then as you exhale, imagine that breath coming all the way down. Something that simple as you move through your day. Let me see how many people can do that. Raise a hand. Good. And it's just a small step to understanding where panic starts to arise, where stress starts to take up your mind space, how that little breath sometimes brings you back to center, to equilibrium, to set you in place. So that's just a tiny something, not to keep everyone too late, but just a tiny add-on to your day, and I hope everyone uses it wisely and uses it in everyday practice. So, thank you all.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. That will bring us to the closing of our proceedings. I would just like to do some special thank yous. I stand before you today with a heart full of gratitude as we come to the end of this truly important and enlightening event focusing on suicide, mental health, and youth. This gathering has been a powerful testament to our collective commitment to addressing a critical and often stigmatized aspect of our society. First and foremost, special mention must be made to Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, who have made crucial in gathering the data needed for the creation of our platform. Another special mention to Dr. Christian Stone, Chairman of the Youth Development Education Committee of First Citizens Foundation, who has championed our cause. Thank you so much. This event would not have been possible without his dedication in bringing this. Thank you to our partners and speakers. Your insightful and personal stories have shed light on the challenges faced by our youth and the importance of providing support and understanding to the nation's youth. Your willingness to share your experiences have undoubtedly touched the hearts and minds of everyone here. A special note of appreciation goes to our sponsors and partners, Blue Waters Product Limited, who would have provided refreshments, Starbucks Trinidad and Tobago, who would have provided some tokens, First Citizens Bank, who supported everything, Rotary Club, Central Port of Spain, who would have supported in the refreshments. Thank you so much. Your unwavering support demonstrates your dedication to the cause of mental health awareness, and we are immensely grateful to your contribution. I also want to express my gratitude to the dedicated team of organizers and volunteers who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the success of this event. Your hard work and dedication have been invaluable in creating a safe and supportive space for this important discussion. To our attendees, thank you for your active participation and engagement throughout the event. Your presence here today is a testament to your commitment to the well-being of our youth, and we hope that you leave here with renewed inspiration and determination to make a positive impact. Lastly, but certainly not least, I want to thank the brave and resilient young individuals who continue to share their stories with us. Your courage in speaking out about mental health journeys is an inspiration to us all. Your voices remind us of the importance of empathy, compassion, and the need for continued dialogue on this critical issue. In conclusion, let us carry with us the spirit of this event forward.
Let us continue to support and uplift our youth impacted by mental health illnesses. Together, we can break down the barriers of stigma and create a more compassionate and understanding society. Thank you all once again for your unwavering support and dedication. Let's work together to make a difference in the lives of our youth. Thank you all. We would now like to invite you all for photo opportunities, and we have refreshments outside.